Let us begin with the questions that were asked by the media. Question number one. Asgardia is expecting to be accepted by the UN as the first digital government. What requirements does Asgardia need to fulfill in order to be recognized as a first space nation? Yes, indeed, we would like to get the recognition of the United Nations as a fully fledged state, but this is not entirely necessary. Regarding the requirements that are set forth to the members of the United Nations, I think that Asgardia currently meets all of these requirements because we do have our hymn, we do have our symbols, we have our coat of arms, our flag, our own territory, which is a satellite in the Earth's orbit, Asgardia 1. We have our own national currency, solar, and so on and so forth. So I think that legally speaking, there are no reasons to reject us. We are already in negotiations regarding this for at least the past year, and we hope that by the end of this year they're going to transfer into the formal zone, and we're doing everything we can to make this happen. Question 2. Over a period of less than 4 years, we had a huge amount of people from over 200 countries. The majority of these countries do not have their own spacecraft or space fleets. So Asgardia is opening the borders to space to anybody who wants to, regardless of the development of the space industry of the country. Yes, this is fully correct, because we know that there is a main essence of the international cooperation, like the International Space Station, where I think only 6 nations are represented. This is Russia, the United States, the European Union, Canada, and Japan. If I've left somebody out, please I do apologize. There are a number of countries that have their own space programs. This is China and India. So you see, the members here are very limited. The so-called Space Club is a very closed club, and entire continents and separate regions do not have access to, and this is also confirmed by the legislation of the countries that are part of this elite space club. So, Asgardia is positioning itself and is offering itself as a system integrator for those countries of Earth which have not managed to make it into this club. And we hope that we will be able to be an integral representative of these countries inside space. Of course, the main objective of Asgardia is to allow equal access to space to all countries, regardless of their level of economic development. So we are for democratizing space. The next question is about the recent launch of the rocket from SpaceX, from Elon Musk's company. And this event has shown that a private-public partnership can be successful. And the question is, do you think that the private companies are going to be holding the future regarding space exploration? Well, I'm very pragmatic with this regard, and I think that space, at least for some time to come, is yet not going to be very attractive in terms of business. It's going to be a strategic perspective, a strategic goal, and is going to be such for governments to whom this is a question of prestige, to whom this is a question of politics and geopolitics. And of course, this eventually is a question of business promotions. So now, as we see that private companies do start playing a serious role on this market, on the market of space, this is amazing. But I see a breakthrough in terms of the public-private relation shift. The breakthrough and the shift between the public and the private is going to happen a bit later, not right now. Now, a question about the pandemic that has been a huge shock for humanity and could unite people, but we see growing protests, as we can see around the world. We see questions of economic inequality being raised. And what do you think about this? And how is Asgardia creating a single nation with representatives of different nations, cultures, religions, and ethnicities? Well, how do we create it? So, well, we create it even in our constitution, which the holiday of which we are celebrating today. We have it written down in the constitution that Asgardia sees no difference between races, religions, nationalities. With this, we give our citizens and residents, to all Asgardians, full freedom to the Asgardians living where they live right now. They have the full right to go by the religion that they go with right now, to participate in politics of their respective countries. And sometimes I say that I don't know anything about you except for the fact that you probably have a computer, because if you would not have a computer, you would not be able to become an Asgardian. And we're not even asking you in our surveys that we give out, we're not asking your ethnicity or nation. We don't have questions in our personal data surveys about your religion and so on and so forth. And Asgardia is creating a unified human nation. Now, a question regarding the President of the United States, Donald Trump, about his decree that would allow the United States of America to use the resources of the moon in the interests of the USA. And could we see a Star Wars taking place in the space club between their member nations? Well, right now, I would not want to side with the huge amount of people who would like to throw stones at Donald Trump. But nevertheless, I have to say that he is not acting on behalf of the security of space. And we're not only talking about the decree about the use of the resource on the moon here, we're talking about his decree regarding the creation of the space war fleet of the USA, and about him leaving the old international agreements regarding use of space, which were signed back in the second half of the 20th century, which is not cool. Now, regarding space wars, I think that all the space or Star Wars, well, if they're going to start, God forbid them to begin on Earth, and all these contradictions which we see between the earthly nations, I hope that they will be able to be resolved in geopolitical confrontations on Earth. Of course, I would like for this to be avoided as much as possible. Of course, I would want us to not see a space and golden rush with space cowboys, and I hope that the great equalizer would not be in place. We would not have a cult analog there. And I hope that humanity will be able to not transfer into the future its history, the history of conflict, the history of wars, the history of hatred, and the history of confrontation. I hope that we will be able to not take this to space. I hope that space will be able to remain peaceful, and Asgardia is going to do everything that we can to make this so. Lance Stormy from Australia is asking that, yes, of course, we'd like to have a child born in space within the next 25 years, and of course, we'd like to see a colony that would be created on another planet within 100 years. What is the position of Asgardia regarding this? Well, first of all, this is the main mission of Asgardia. The main mission of Asgardia is to see the first human child be born in space, which would allow us to be sure in the continuation of mankind in the universe. Yes, we have counted on it, and we're still counting on it to solve this question, to solve this within 25 years, 3 of which have already passed. The task needs to be solved in 4 stages, and this includes researches that would be done in the area on Earth, then the creation of a Earth arc with the same goal in mind. Then we would transfer into the further off space and creating the moon arc, and after we are going to have certainty in the possibility of implementation of the project, we would then want to create the star arc that would be able to, that needs to be able to, stay in space for 50 and more years. And our task has to be solved within this coming 25 years, 3 of which have passed. And I think that maybe we'll reduce this timeline, as strange as it may sound, because, we are currently evaluating its cost at $3.5 trillion. I think that price may reduce, and this has nothing to do with Asgardia's achievements. I think it's just that we see the scientific progress speed up in general, and things are becoming more available. And so the question of microtechnologies and new energy sources, and so the technological progress in itself will be able to speed up the timeline that we have put forth for ourselves. We're going to work at it. This is our main goal. Now, Ricardo Pinheira from Portugal is saying, we all know that now the only way into space are rockets. We've seen the latest launch of SpaceX. What do you think? Does Asgardia have an alternative route which could be used by us? Would we be able to use something else like the space lift? Well, I've said this frequently, and maybe I'll repeat this again. Asgardia is not a company. Asgardia is a nation, is a country. And as a country, we don't do projects. We just give our jurisdiction to allow the best minds of humanity to concentrate and to pull together the resources of technology and research to be able to bring the birth of the first human child in space closer. So, of course, we welcome any alternative methods of exploring space, and all of them were described in one way or another back in the fantasy and sci-fi novels of the 20th century, and the space lift and other methods. So I would not want to speak about some separate project as a scientific project of Asgardia. I would like to just say that Asgardia wants to be the integrator and the leader of all the projects, and we're open to any ideas, any new methods, any new means of exploring and exploring both nearby and far off space. Now, Joshua Marzak from the USA. Now, what is the process of business registration going to look like? How is the taxation system going to look like in Asgardia? Are there going to be any stimuli packages that would be working in Asgardia? Well, the project of legislation regarding the registration of business entities and regarding entrepreneurship in Asgardia has already been developed by our parliament, and is going to be looked at in its first version in August on the 3rd digital session of the Parliament of Asgardia, after its publication, which is going to be done in the first dates of September, after I'm going to sign the implementation of the law into action. Then we're going to be able to publicly see what is written there, but I can tell you right now that yes, we are going to be registering businesses within Asgardia's jurisdiction, and yes, there is going to be a certain beneficial taxation scale and taxation system. Now, there is a question about, are there going to be any connections with the government workers? Well, because we are a digital country, we're going to try and make the entire process of registration as simple as possible for it to not require any analog or live means of communication, no telephone negotiations, for it all to be integrated into a digital platform and Asgardia, and to be integrated into its economical system the simplest way possible. Now, Bill English, no country stated, but judging by surname English, maybe maybe the UK. Now, he's asking, how does the UK plan to uphold the value of solar? Is it going to be backed by gold or by precious metals? Is a bank that we're talking about ready to support it with its funding, with its resources? Now, first of all, I would like to make everybody happy and say that during the last session of Parliament, we have seen the law of national currency being approved. Solar, as of today, is backed by euro. From the accounting, 1 euro is equal to 1 solar. Moreover, for the first time, the members of Parliament and the other government workers of Asgardia have got paid as a result of 2019. They got their salary in solars, but for the first time they were able, unfortunately it still takes a long time, but they were able to transfer the solars into euro and to get their salaries in euro on their accounts for those who wanted. Some of them left their revenues in solar in order to be able to continue and use them in the economic system of Asgardia. And some of them have received their salaries and converted it to euro, and I think that this is a very positive step, which we have already taken regarding the conversion of solars into euro. Now, we are planning, and I'm going to remind you that Asgardians have voted on the government currencies of Asgardia. Now, we're going to have 12 of these currencies, and it is our task to ensure that solar is converted into 12 earthly fiat currencies, and that's what we're going to strive towards. Now, regarding the question of the bank, currently there is a registered investment company of Asgardia, which is called Asgardia Financial Arc. It is a financial arc of Asgardia. And correspondingly, this year, hopefully, we're going to see the emission of shares to purchase a fiat bank in one of the Earth jurisdictions. And currently, we're expecting this to be a sum of approximately 50 million euro that is going to be collected by Asgardians in order to found their fiat national bank. At the same time as this, of course, there is going to be a digital bank of Asgardia, which is going to be working simultaneously with the Earth Bank of Asgardia, because the main connection between the fiat currencies of Earth and the Asgardian Solar is going to be taking place at this connection point, when you will be able to buy solars for the fiat currency, and then you are transferred into the jurisdiction of Asgardia, and there you use solar, and you pay minimal taxes, and you behave according to the jurisdiction of Asgardia. And as soon as you want to go back into fiat currencies, sure, you just exchange your solars back into fiat currencies. Therefore, the emission of solars, the additional emission, unlike some earthly countries where they can just print it and they're emitting as much currency as they need, as is needed by the government of the country, in Asgardia, this happens automatically. Because the solar is emitted as to an extent that the needs and the demand for the services and goods that are traded in the jurisdiction of Asgardia are used. So, for example, he wants to purchase something in our jurisdiction, he gets into the jurisdiction, he spends it or he earns it, and after he, for example, have earned some money and he transferred the solars that he has earned back into the fiat currencies of the country that he resides in. And I'm sorry for being so detailed, but I think that this is an important topic, because I think the economic topic needs greater understanding in general. Now a question, should Asgardia thrive towards the economy being based on a universal basic income rather than a traditional one? Now this is an important question. It was asked by a person who has not displayed his country, but is named Drax. But this is a very on-point question, because I think in all the countries in the world right now, the income of people is in no way connected to the income of the country as a whole. Well, I think there are certain examples, like for example in the state of Alaska in the United States or in the United Arab Emirates, where a certain portion of the national income that is generally tied into the natural resources of Earth is being distributed to a certain portion of its population, of its residents, of its citizen. But whether the economy grows or falls is usually not directly connected to the pocket of the taxpayers. However, in Asgardia, we plan that a part of the national income, according to the decision of the parliament, this which you call universal basic income, is going to be divided between the citizens of Asgardia. So, yes, we do plan to implement this. Yuli Pado from France. What is your personal attitude or take on artificial intelligence? Do you plan to integrate it into Asgardia? You know, when I was younger, I was working on the problems of artificial intelligence for a number of years, and I think I understand a thing or two in this, and I think that its role currently is a little bit overvalued, especially by the mass media, and some people are being frightened by it. Some people are getting panic attacks. Oh, we're going to be enslaved by the machines. People are making movies on the subject, but I would treat this much simpler. That of course, yes, we are currently already using elements of artificial intelligence in Asgardia, and there is no way around this. And yes, today computer software win the best chess players. But what is called intuition, where we're not calculating, where we're not counting options, when we are talking about our conscience, subconscious and creativity, I think that humanity has nothing to fear from artificial intelligence with regards to these aspects. But we do have to continue research in this area, and we do have to use artificial intelligence in order to improve the lives of people. Now, Thomas Ulrich from Germany says, what opportunities of participation in the development of Asgardia are held by people who are 60 years and older? Well, first of all, I don't think, well, I'm 56 I don't think that 60 and higher is an old age. I think this was the case in the middle of the 20th century, but the latest achievements of the medical science have significantly moved the boundary back, which you could before this called old age. Now, in Asgardia, we do have certain age restrictions. Now, they concern both the very young as well as the people of a certain age. For example, according to the Constitution, you cannot be a parliament member unless who are younger. You cannot be a parliament member if you are younger than 40, and this causes certain friction and arguments because certain young people want to be elected into the parliament. When we were trying to set the standard into the constitution, we wanted for the people who would be accepting laws in the parliament, who would be determining the lives of the society, they, apart from having the intellect and the eagerness and the enthusiasm which is held by the young people, we would want them to have a certain life experience, which is why we introduced this restriction that a parliament member can be elected only if he's 40 years or older. Now, regarding the age in government, there is a restriction on the age of ministries. We do not allow people who are 60 years and older to hold the positions of ministers, and we have put this restriction in place because, of course, we'd like to see people in our government who are able to give a lot of their personal energy and a lot of their skills and abilities, and they have to be workaholics, so to speak. So we want to see people who are younger in our government. Now, other governments, well, you understand, it's a government. We only have 13 people now. Yeah, we have one prime minister and 12 ministers, and our parliament is 150 people. So these are not huge restrictions. So I can answer your question in this way: that these are the only restrictions we have, and there are no other restrictions regarding Age in Asgardia. Now, Patrick Jacobs from Netherlands or Holland is asking about the non-profit organizations. Such organizations are such organizations welcome under the flag of Asgardia? Well, funnily enough, I can't answer this question because it is going to be part of that legislation package which we're going to be passing regarding business and companies in Asgardia, which is going to be discussed in its first draft at the end of August of this year. And there is going to be an entire part that is to do with not-profit or not-for-profit organizations. So if you have any ideas what these organizations should look like, please do present your offer. It's not late, we have time, there's still 2 months, and we will take them into consideration when we are preparing the project of a legislation, which includes the statutes regarding the non-profits on our next digital session in the third decade, in the late August. Now, once again, Holland, Ender. Are there any plans to have space flights to orbit? If yes, then how long is it going to take? And would we need to pay extra? Well, regarding payments, I think that we know that space flights are an expensive business. Now, regarding how long would it take? Well, we are currently in negotiation. I yet do not have the right to disclose the details of these negotiations, and we are currently negotiating with the European Space Agency and through it with NASA on the participation of Asgardia in the space program. And we do hope that within a 5-year period we want to have our own Asgardia module in space. And this would be a stepping stone to the creation of the Earth Arc of Asgardia. Now, we plan to make this happen within 5 years, and we plan to launch two Asgardian space astronauts into space. Now, how well we will be able to implement these plans, we'll keep you informed as the project develops. Now, regarding the conceptual note and the project draft have already been prepared, and they have already been directed to the appropriate institutes and agencies. Now, Mohammed Nurdin from Nairobi, from Kenya, he's asking, when are the elections of the mayors of Asgardia going to be complete? Well, I'm going to answer this in the following way: not very soon, even though we would like it to be sooner, and I'm going to explain why. Our position is as follows. We want Asgardia to have its representatives, its mayors, in each city or town on Earth that has a population higher than 5,000 people. Now, there's a huge amount of settlements like this on Earth. I think it's approximately 50 to 100,000 settlements throughout Earth. We'll be able to give you exact numbers within the next 2 months. For now, we're not going. For now, until we're going to have a mayor in each city and town on Earth, the elections of mayors are not going to be complete. Moreover, when we are building up the government pyramid of Asgardia, this is its first stepping block, because later, according to the administrative division of each particular earthly country, we're going to see the elections of prefects for the regions, we're going to see the elections of governors for the countries, maybe we're going to have some different titles. I'm just using the titles and position names that are more common to certain countries on Earth: mayors, prefects, governors. Maybe Asgardians will find their own terms for this, but this is in essence what we're talking about, because we have to create an entire hierarchy of management, and the top of which would be the parliament, and the bottom of which would be the mayors of settlements with residencies of 5,000 and more people. Now, Carlos Fuana from Spain is asking, has your strategy of Asgardia development changed with regards to the latest developments of current events on Earth? Well, I don't know what exactly current events are you talking about, because they're constantly taking place and something is always happening, but of course Asgardia's strategy is not changed in the slightest, because in our Declaration of Unity and in our Constitution, we have it clearly stated that we do not get involved with the affairs of earthly nations. So the earthly events cannot influence the strategic goals and objectives of Asgardia. Fernando in Italy, from Italy. How do you plan on attracting intellectuals? Asgardia seems a nation that would, in prospect, compete with IT giants, but the good working positions are mainly only available in the USA. Once again, I want to tell you, Asgardia is not a nation. It's not a business. It's a nation. We do not intend to compete with businesses. We just want to give the opportunities to the best of minds, the best of companies to work within the jurisdiction of Asgardia. Well, they are currently placed in the US, and for example, we want to make it more profitable and easier and better to work in the jurisdiction of Asgardia, because huge company, nations spend a huge amount of their budgets to support their farming, the defense of their borders, the police, the armies, whereas Asgardia will be able to concentrate all of its efforts in order to explore space, to use space technology to improve it, and to achieve our main goal, the birth of the first human child in space. So we are not planning on competing with anybody, we're planning on cooperating with everybody. Siyan from China is saying, I would like to become an investor. Are you planning to create an investment fund for people like me? Now, I'm going to repeat once again, such an investment fund has already been created and is called the Asgardia Financial Arc. It is registered in the jurisdiction of Austria, in Vienna. Therefore, all the residents of Asgardia can purchase the shares of this investment fund, of this financial holding. The price of a single share right now is 1,000 euros, and you can purchase it as you can purchase the shares of the head company, and you can purchase some shares of some particular project, like the things I've mentioned, like the project of the purchase of the Fiat Bank, which currently exists, and it's further transferring to the state of the National Bank of Asgardia on Earth. And you can also purchase the shares of the project of the Asgardian Earth Arc, and there are a number of other projects which you can invest into. So yes, you can purchase the shares of the main company, then you're taking part in all the projects that are under the umbrella of the Asgardia Financial Arc. Or you can purchase the specific shares of the project that you see most interesting. Now, Len Moon from Indonesia. What risks exist? What risks are there that Asgardia will not be able to achieve its goals? The people of Asgardia needs to know about these risks in order to help avoid them. Now, I would name two main risk factors here. This is economy and politics. All the technical goals, all the scientific technical goals, and organizational goals, and the goals of government building, they're all achievable. With the economy, the only problem that we can run into is the problem of population. Now, you know that Asgardia right now has a population of approximately 1,050,000, and we aim for approximately 150 million. Now, depending on how well we can achieve that goal, our economy system is going to become more and more vibrant. And so the question of budgeting, the question of forming the initial budget, it's a fairly risky question, but it depends only on you, on the Asgardians, how many of you are going to be there in Asgardia, and as many of you are going to be there, and as much solars as you're going to be purchasing and using them in order to exchange goods and services, then if as enough today, like the 100 solars that you pay per year is what is all that our budget has, which is approximately €8 per month. Now, the second risk, I think, is more important. It's the political risk, because as Asgardia is becoming a nation, and as we find successes or not successes, and as Asgardia is going to be recognized as an official nation from the United Nations, we think that there may be threats from other nations in terms of Asgardia. Maybe they will be against the development of Asgardia if solar is going to be developing as an all-earth currency, and if we are going to see a lot of success in economy and technology, and if we're going to show them that it's possible that we'll be able to be top 15 economies of the world, then we are going to run into political threats, into political risks. And I'm looking at the time, and I'm afraid to not have enough time to answer the questions that keep coming in from the online, so I'm just going to move the questions that I have left over here, and I'm going to read. Now, Amela Kundo from France is asking, what country do you like best, and why? And where would Asgardia plant its first earthly roots? Well, of course, my favorite country is Asgardia, and I like it the most. Well, second of all is Azerbaijan and the city of Baku. It's my smaller motherland where I was born, and of course Russia, in which I live for the majority of my life, for over half of my life. Now, where will Asgardia plant its earthly roots? Now, Asgardia has already planted them in Austria, in Vienna, where we have our headquarters, our main headquarters on Earth. And the choice to this country was clear to us because this country is very neutral. It's not a part of any military alliances that currently exist on Earth, and because this country is also the home of a representative office of the United Nations, which is engaged in questions of space exploration, which is why Vienna. Now, of course, we would like to have our own, so to speak, White House on Earth, and we're looking at a number of jurisdictions for this. Most probably, this is going to be some neutral territory. We're currently in negotiations regarding these subjects with a number of... But, you know, I don't want to jinx it, so we're currently looking for the country on Earth that would provide us a certain plot of land to rent in order for us to be able to place our own space station there where we could launch rockets from, and our national scientific center where we could have our government workers constantly work, and where we could place our parliament and government and so on. For now, I can't tell you exactly where this country is going to be. For now, our headquarters are in Austria. Now, Jitsian from China. Do you personally know Elon Musk, and can we expect a partnership with him? Would you like to meet him? Well, no, I don't personally know Elon Musk. Of course, I'd like to meet him. He's doing a lot of things that we welcome dearly. So, of course, we're open to partnership. Now, Yanis from Germany. Could our Asgardian calendar compete with others? Could we change our time to Asgardian time? I think that we not only can, but we should. Because the question of cosmic time, because you know, like all the earthly calendars, they're all looking up at the sky, but the Asgardian calendar, it's looking not up from Earth, but it's looking from within space. And we think that this is the future, and the Asgardian calendar holds the future of the cosmonautics. and its recognition as the main calendar for use in space and development of humanity in space. And your questions are just scrolling by so quick. Now, Jacques from France, when are we taking off? We're taking off as soon as the Ark is ready, and I've already told you that we have this timeline set, and we hope that this will happen within the next 5 years. Now, Bryce Targat from France is asking, how far has the global lockdown slowed the life of Asgardia down? On the contrary, the global lockdown has sped up the life of Asgardia, because everybody has been locked in their homes, in their apartments, and you know, what else could they do except for be on their computers? And so our traffic has increased, the amount of Asgardians has increased, and so we are, at the end of the day, as a result of this pandemic and this virus, have only sped up. Now, Kaiser Basilevs from Oregon is asking, what is Asgardia going to do in order to include those who have very little or no money, meaning the most majority of the people on Earth? Well, you know that you can become an Asgardian for free, right? So any person who has no money can become an Asgardian. Now, if you want to ask what about becoming a resident and taking part in the elections and the referendums, to have an opportunity to work in Asgardia, to have an opportunity to be elected into positions in Asgardia, then for this, yes, you need to pay 100 solars a year, but this is like €8 a month. I don't think that this is a sum that is unachievable, that is so large, but once again, I want to repeat that you can become an Asgardian for free, and I want to tell you that the majority of Asgardians are people who are not paying anything. So I don't think that this question is valid. Now, Darren Schwartz from the US is asking, could Asgardia achieve more over these past 3 years, and what has stopped it from doing so? Well, of course, Asgardia could have achieved more. Now, what has stopped us? Well, I'm going to take the blame, because I was unable to complete an entire array of very large projects on Earth with my previous line of activity that I hoped to complete, and that also includes the economic crisis that has happened because of the virus of COVID-19. So I was unable to dedicate all of my time to the Asgardia project, and I do hope that this situation is going to change in the nearest futures. However, we did not expect that we're going to encounter such problems in terms of developing the software backend, because it's very hard to coordinate the actions of a huge amount of programmers from a number of countries, and we have already changed and switched over a number of teams, and we hope that in the nearest futures you will be able to see the new beta version of our digital platform that is going to be the best essence of what the better version of what we're seeing today. Now, Anton Sneemon from Canada is asking, now, what is the task of the head of nation that is most interesting for next year? Well, how could I select one task? You know, we do have this global task that is connected with the global digital economy of Asgardia and the conversion of the solar into currencies. And we also have the task of creating the structure of government management, which I've talked about, the mayors, the prefects, the governors. And we also have the fantastic task of, well, that's realistic though, is the development and the launch of the first space Earth Ark of Asgardia with astronauts on board. So, like, if I left something out right now, people are going to say, oh, that was so interesting, but Okay, I can't highlight a single priority here because they're all very important. Now, a question here regarding our own internet, that is to do with Asgardia, that is to do with the launch of the satellites by Elon Musk. Now, in terms of Asgardia development, there is a question of the creation of our own internet communication lines. And this task, unfortunately, as of today, is not yet technically solved, not only by Asgardia, but it's not solved all around the world. It is not solved because the way that this task is put forth is that Asgardians need to be connected to the Earth only by our feet, because our feet is what we use in order to move around on Earth. And in our hands we should have an Asgardian phone or a mobile device, and an Asgardian should be able to communicate with any other Asgardian in any part of our planet without using any Earth-based communications, so without using any hardware that is connected to the Earth. Now, this is possible only if we have the phone, satellite, phone, and we have tried to conduct research, and we have researched using optical means of communications. We have encountered issues that are to do with the atmosphere and with certain hindrances of the geographic specifics, with clouds, height of buildings, and so forth. So this is a question that is being investigated not only by us but by a number of research institutes all around the world. For now, it is not technically solved yet, but I am firm in my belief that the development of science and technology on Earth as a whole, not only in Asgardia, is going to help solve this question. And then, of course, we're going to have our own Asgardian internet, which we'll be happy to provide to all the Earthlings, regardless of whether they are Asgardians or not. Now, Emily Wongs from Canada is asking, why have you done an age limitation of 40 years in the parliament? Now, I have already answered this question, because we have thought that a person who is accepting laws and legislations, who needs to be working on behalf of 150 million people, he must have not only knowledge and enthusiasm, he must have life experience. And the question of when Asgardia is going to become a young nation, well, Asgardia is already a young nation. I think that our average age is 32, and I think 75% of Asgardians are younger than 32. So, you know, Asgardia is a young nation, so even though we do have Asgardians who are older than 80. But we are already a young nation, and I don't think there are any limitations on the work in government or in other government positions, mayors or higher. The only age limitation is for parliament members. You could work in government with no legislation. Once again, it's only 150 people who are members of parliament. And even right now, for over a year, we are currently accepting the suggestions for the amendments of the constitution. So I can see a situation where during a referendum on the changes in the constitution, we see this age restriction being removed. But as of today, with regards to the constitution that is in effect today, it exists. Now, Stella Brisk from Canada, I'm not going to read your question because you're just thanking me, and I just want to thank you in return. Thank you very much for writing these nice words to me. And I'm being asked, what Asgardian achievements are you most proud of? Stella is asking. You know, I'm proud of Asgardia. I'm proud of the fact that there are over 1 million of you now, that we exist, and that we have made manifest. This is amazing. Asgardia is amazing. Now, people are telling me that I have less than 5 minutes left on air here, and I would like to say the following. I'd like to apologize to those whose questions I didn't answer. We're not going to forget them. We're going to write them down and answer them in the next question and answer session. Now, we had our second digital plenary session of Asgardia just recently, and tomorrow we're going to have the digital session of the Space Council. Now, apart from the various important things like the accepting of the legislation regarding the judicial system of Asgardia, tomorrow we're also going to look at the candidates for the judges of Asgardia, for the Supreme Judge. We have also made the decision to hold early elections to the parliament and to the formation of the government of parliament. And all of this must be completed by the 1st of November of this year. Now, the starting line has been drawn, and I would like to ask all the Asgardians residents first off, because voting and taking part in the elections, we're going to have 50 parliament members elected to the parliament here, and we're going to see the election of 13 members of government, one of whom is going to be Prime Minister. As of today, only 1,255 residents have the right to take part in the voting, but even this is a huge competition for a place. So any Asgardian who is not a resident can become a resident within basically a number of minutes. And we welcome anybody who puts themselves forth to the positions. We welcome the participation in our competitions, and we would like for fresh blood to get involved into the management processes of Asgardia, and this is going to be great. We hope to see you there, and there are just a couple of months left. And then later on we plan in November, I guess, to gather on Cyprus, if the borders allow us. We plan to hold an annual common session of the parliament, the government, the court, and the High Space Council, in order for the current parliamentary representatives who are already used to these annual events to be able to introduce themselves and get to know the new members of our government management system, and vice versa. And bringing this to a close, as is tradition, I want to say the Asgardian welcome. I am hugging each and every one of you. Once again, thank you very much, and happy holiday.